שלום רב, ברוכים הבאים לפסטיבל חיפה הבינלאומי לקולנוע 37. שמי רון פוגל, אני מבקר קולנוע ומרצה לקולנוע, ואני אראיין כאן את הבמאי ארתור הררי על סרטו אונודה, 10,000 ימים בג'ונגל. הראיון התקיים באנגלית. Hi Arthur, how are you? I just want you to introduce you. Maybe you can introduce yourself in a second. We are talking about the film Onoda, 10,000 Days in the Jungle. If I'm not mistaken, that's the name of the film.
Yes.
So say a few words about yourself and we'll start.
Okay. Well, I am Arthur Harari. I'm a French director, and Onoda is my second feature film. Yes, and it was just shown in the Cannes Film Festival. It was the opening of the section Un certain regard, and so I'm very glad to discuss with you about the film. And unfortunately, I won't be able to be in Haifa to present the film, but it's a great pleasure for me to discuss about it and to know that it will be seen by the audience.
Okay, first let me ask you, as you said, you're a French film director. What drew you to this story of a Japanese soldier stuck in the jungles in the Philippines in the Second World War?
Well, I must say that it was really not something that I could have in mind before I met basically the story. I heard of the story through my father because I wanted to make an adventure film for a long time. So I was reading a lot of things, fiction as well as non-fiction. And at one point, my father, who is absolutely not in the movies, but in his, he had a lot of books about, let's say, sailors or explorators, adventurers, and so I read a lot of things from his books, but I was frustrated because I didn't find any subject that seemed to match with what I wanted to do. And one day he said to me, almost as a joke, he told me, but you know, there's always this story of this Japanese soldier who stayed a long time in this island, believing that the war was not over. So I didn't know the story, and I'm sure my father really didn't imagine that I was really going to make the film, because it seemed at this point I hadn't even made my first feature film. I was about to direct it. So I basically went on the internet and I found the Wikipedia page for Onoda, and it immediately it caught me. There was something in this story which I think it cannot be. It's impossible for someone not to be interested and not to be fascinated by this, because it has something at the same time impossible, absurd, and impressive, because this guy did something which nobody else did, and we can consider that it's ridiculous or that it's heroic, but it's something is at the same time too far away from us, and it talks deeply to something in us, I guess. So it was the same. That happened with me, and I guess that for me, the what I was searching in an adventure film, it was all in this story. There was something really concrete and at the same time quite metaphysical or existential, something like that. And I felt that it was like going back to the very roots of what is a story.
Mm-hmm. So it's also a film about survival and the human spirit. I just want some technical thing. Did you shoot in the Philippines on location where he actually lived all those times?
No, it was my first idea when I read about the story and I decided to make the movie. It was to shoot in the island, the actual island of Lubang, but we couldn't do that. We had a lot of possibilities and options, but of course the project was very difficult to produce. The money was a big issue from the beginning, and the producer Nicolas Antomé, he made a very long journey to understand how to produce and to finance the film. And at one point we understood that filming in the Philippines was maybe not the easiest way for us French people to make a co-production and to find money. And maybe there was something that I was not conscious about, but I think that we had to feel free to make a fiction film. This is very important for me. It's just a fiction. It's a fiction film. Of course, it's based on the real events and the real character, but something in the story escapes from reality. The story itself has something of a fiction. To me, Onoda lived his 30 years in this place as a fiction. So I had to feel free and to not be linked too much to something which could have been a historical review or a biopic or an official reality thing. So to decide, we shot in Cambodia because at one point we understood that it was very interesting production-wise and also because the landscapes and the physical nature sets were amazing. Of course, they would have been amazing in the Philippines, but there was something that allowed us to recreate an imaginary island. And this is basically what Onoda did himself. He recreated a kind of world in this island. So this is not something that I was conscious about when I did the film, when we decided to shoot in Cambodia, but I guess it was part of the process.
By the way, you talk about fiction and not documentary. I understand that there are two actors playing the hero. That I just wanted to know about your choice not to take the same actor and to make him older by makeup and everything. That's a part of you telling the audience that it's actually fiction.
I guess it's part of the choice to really. This is an aesthetic. It's at the same time an aesthetic choice because what you see on the screen is a form, and what you project on the screen is it's a paradox. I think that the experience of the audience is at the same time too. It's all about believing. You have to believe that what you are seeing is actually happening, and the people are actually flesh and blood, and they're involved in something real. But at the same time, building this, making a movie is dealing with artificial elements. So of course you choose an actor. The actor is not the real character, but the whole thing is to forget that that is not the character. And it's the same for me. I had to forget that those two people were two. But to go back to my choice, there's something really concrete, is that I'm not often very convinced in the movies by how the actors are being made old. It's very, very rare, these films in which I don't have a problem believing. So at one point, I just chose to make this quite strong choice to have two actors, because to me it was easier to make this kind of bet that the audience would believe that this guy has changed in a way. It was easier to make this bet than to make the bet that we could be able with the makeup to make this guy 20 years older, because at one point there's a big gap in the film and there's a almost 20 years ellipse. So, and of course it also has to do with the fact that Onoda, he thinks he doesn't change because his beliefs and his faith in his presence and the reason of its presence and the belief in this fiction of his is that strong. It's strong enough for him to think that he's always the same. But we, as an audience, when we look at the movie, the fact that he physically changes that much, it says something about the fact that something has happened and he doesn't know. The time has passed and he doesn't know. So it felt interesting to try to be with the same character, as even if his face and his body changes. It was a bet. It was a bet.
Interesting. You're dealing in the film with some Japanese traditions. Like, we know the tradition of the samurai, that he will never fall alive in battle and he has to do the harakiri and everything. But opposite to that, the commanding officer of Onoda tells him in the beginning, stay alive, survive no matter what. And this is different from what we know about the ethical code of the Japanese soldiers, like we saw in Letters from Iwo Jima by Clint Eastwood, that the commanding officers commit suicide and don't want to be kept alive, got alive by the enemy. So this is like breaking a myth, or thinking that the things that we know about. That's one thing. And another thing that I want to ask, did you have any connection with the Onoda family doing this film? I was just wondering.
Maybe I can answer to the last question, because it's quite simple. I didn't have direct contacts with the family, but we had somebody in Japan which I was working with, Bernard Sandron, who is the author of a book, a French documentary book that was written in the 70s. And actually it's the book that I used at first to write the script. And Bernard is still alive, and we worked closely with him, and he still lives in Tokyo. And so he had contacts with the Onoda Foundation, which is dealing with the heritage of Onoda. And so we had a kind of, they didn't really read the script or anything, because we wanted to be free once more. We felt that the story was public and the facts could be the basis of a fiction, but we wanted to be in good relation with the family and with this foundation. So we had an agreement that we could make the film. We made things really smoothly and diplomatically, so it could be accepted. Also because I was a foreign director for them, so it was not that easy to imagine that the film was made. So, but it all went very well. And then I must say also that when I discovered the story and when I decided to make the film with the producer, Onoda was still alive. It was in 2013, and he died in 2014, 1 year later. So at one point, I was wondering, maybe I'm going to go see and try to meet Onoda in Japan. But then he died, so I was kind of liberated from that also. And it I think it allowed me to just create in a way my character. And about what your first question about the knowledge that we think we have about Japanese traditions and standards, one of the things that I felt was fascinating about this story is that in a way it is a myth, but it breaks all the cliches and it's not enough just to rely on what we think we know to understand the character and to understand the story. Because of course you could say this story is about Japanese brainwashing. It's about this inflexible, strong will that will never break. It's about military. I don't know the English word, but when the dogma is that strong that you cannot be free from the dogma. you could say all these things, but to me it's really not enough. It's not there's no satisfying answers coming from those really it's not even scratching the surface to me. So but this is something that I cannot tell a story if I think that it's going to just comfort the first impressions of the audience or my the cliches that I have in mind. It's all about breaking this and trying to go deeper and deeper and to understand maybe something of the real experience. What is an experience? So of course, one of the major thing in this story is what you said. This guy has to sacrifice his life, but without dying. This guy has to give all his time, but this means surviving. So it's a paradox. It's a living paradox. And it's, for me, it's impossible to say if Onoda chooses to complete his mission because he wants to apply the orders or if he basically wants to survive, to live as long as possible. Does he want to be the best soldier possible, or does he want to be free, away from Japan, creating his own world, living in a kind of fiction? It's both possibilities are true, are possible, and it's not artificial from my side. I really have to think it a long time to maybe try to understand. I had to make the movie, and I really still don't really know.
I see. Well, that's a thing for the audience to think about maybe personal life choosing of their own, because it's quite an existentialistic film for you to think about the human condition, how you survive a general and not just this Japanese guy on a deserted island, which is very interesting. I wanted to ask you a bit about the songs that you chose for the film. The song about Sado, that place that everyone has a different version. I was really interested, what does it mean? Does it mean anything? And the song about Chanchung that he hears in the beginning and they play to him in the end. It's like an old Japanese war song or something. Did you do research about it? How do you know which songs to choose for the film?
Well, it was very simple. In the book that I read from Bernard Sandron, this French research book, there was a mention of these two songs. Onoda, when he was formed in this school in Futamata, the professor, the teacher, he used Sado Okesa, this traditional song, this folk song. He used this song to as a metaphor for the secret war. And he said, you all know the song, you all think you know the proper words, the lyrics, but they can change. And all the countries have these kind of songs. This is the basic of folk song, is that you can invent, at a certain point, you can invent your own lyrics. And it's happening with the classical American folk song as well as French medieval songs or whatever. And so he used this as a metaphor, of the improvisation and the kind of liberal approach that was his to the secret warfare. So this struck me as something really interesting, both in a storytelling perspective and also in a poetic perspective, because a song is a poetic artifact that can create a kind of epic wave through a film. So I started to work on that, and it felt quite exciting to have a song so much involved and important in the storytelling itself. Because I love songs as a lot of people do, I guess, and a lot of filmmakers do. But a lot of times in the movies, a song can feel a bit too I don't know how to say. I don't like it when it feels like the song is there because the director loves the song, just because it's a little gift that he makes to himself, or it's a little pleasure or something. In there, the pleasure and the gift was there, but it was really coming from the story, and it was also making the story able to renew itself over and over again. So this is one thing. And for the other song, there was also a mention in the book that the soldiers, it was a very popular soldier song. And at one point, I read in the book that Onoda and his mates, they would sing this song to cheer up and to feel together. And when the rain was falling and it was very, very cold and very difficult conditions, and there were a few lyrics of the song with the troops going in the desert and the helmet. There was something about the helmet or the cap. It was also very interesting for me to imagine those four guys having a common background and the common expression of their condition. They were basically singing things that were happening to them. This is something very strong in the myth and also in a lot of films that I love. For example, there's a film by Fritz Lang, which is called Rancho Notorious, which is a film with Marlene Dietrich. And there's a song going on and on, telling the story in the film. And at one point, one of the guys, I think, is singing the song inside the film. And well, this is a kind of folk tradition that I love. Also in Sam Peckinpah's film Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. These are all things that I love, and I started in the script to try to use also this song as a leitmotiv. But I must say that this particular song the importance of this song has increased a lot in the editing of the movie, because the opening of the film, when the young tourist arrives and he puts the tape that is spreading in the jungle and the camera goes up, and it's basically the way that he's going to make himself known to Onoda. This was not in the script. This was not even shot as part of the shooting. At one point when we were editing the movie, we understood that we could use this song. We didn't have really. It was not in the script that the guy was arriving at the beginning and putting the song. We invented that in the editing, and so we basically made a reshoot of this guy pressing the button, and so it was like inventing a form with using the song to make the past come back. And this also was a bit inspired by a film by Sergio Leone, which is very famous, Once Upon a Time in America. There's a lot of things at the beginning of this beautiful movie which makes the past come back, and one of these things is the song Yesterday by the Beatles that we hear at the beginning, and it makes the link between the 60s and the 30s and the 20s. Well, this is something that seemed interesting to be inspired by, almost as a Proustian, Marcel Proust way to bring the past into the present and to to be a kind of a way to start the fiction, to make the audience go into the fiction with a song that is really the material of the past of the character.
I want to ask you one last final question. Did the movie was shown in Japan? And if yes, what were the reactions of the Japanese audience to the film? That's very interesting.
Yes, it is, and it's still a mystery to me because the film is not yet released in Japan. It will be released at the beginning of October, and just currently, right now, there's a bunch of screenings for the medias, but not yet for the audience because the film is not released. So I have a few feedbacks from the journalists and newspapers and medias, and they're all very, very good feedbacks. I feel that the film is, and I also met some journalists in Cannes. I made some interviews, and I feel that the film is really catching something from the Japanese audience, and it's like a very strong dialogue that they can have with the film. Obviously very special, very different from the other audience, but very strong. And for the moment, there hasn't been violent reactions or reject. For instance, why a French guy is making this film? What is the point of view? I've been told that the film at certain point it doesn't feel French or foreign to them, but at the same time they understand that maybe the film wouldn't have been made by somebody else than a non-Japanese guy. So it's for the moment it's very interesting and very positive, but I'm still waiting for the real release to understand how it can meet a proper audience in Japan.
Well, Audrey Harari, I want to thank you for your time. I watched the film first time in Cannes, in Uncertain Regard, and now before our Zoom meeting, I enjoyed it immensely both times. I congratulate you for the film. I think it's an epic story of not just war, but survival and everything. So I thank you. And I will just say in Hebrew to the audience, they can see the film. I thank you very much again. ואני מודה לכם על ההקשבה. אתם מוזמנים לראות את הסרט בפסטיבל חיפה, אונודה, 10,000 ימים בג'ונגל, סרט נפלא. כאן רון פוגל, תודה רבה ולהתראות. Thank you again, Mr. Director. Bye bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.